Let's sit nice and tall. Oh, so sweet. And just close the eyes. Give yourself this moment to simply reconnect with yourself. Always reconnecting with the self. So important. And draw the hands together in front of the heart. And we'll lift our voices in one Om and the invocation mantras. Taking a breath in. Om Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha Hari Om Ganana Antva Ganapatigam Havamahe Kavin Kavinam Upamashravastamam Jestarajam Brahmanan Brahmanaspata Anashrinvanuti Bsidha Sadhanam Mahaganapataye Namaha Prano Devi Saraswati Vajebhir Vajinivati Dhinama Vitriyavatu Ano Divo Brahataf Parvata Da Saraswati Ajata Gantu Yagnyam Havan Devi Jujushana Kritachi Shagmam Novacha Mushati Shrinotu Vagdevyai Namaha. Fluttering the eyes open. Welcome. Hi. Good to see you all today. So I was thinking that today I would just talk a little bit about love, divine love, and share with you some of my favorite passages from a couple of different scriptures, but focusing on the Bhairavi Tantra, which is in a more modern context called the Radiance Sutras. And to just kind of explore a little bit about why love is so very accessible, so very longed for, and yet appears to be so evasive. It's such a tricky thing, but it's actually really quite simple. We do spend a lot of our life seeking love. We think, if I get the right partner, if I have children, if I have good friends, my family, that these are all the places where love is going to come from. Ultimately, on some level, we will be disappointed. Maybe not always disappointed, but some percentage of the time, we will become disappointed when those are the sources of love for us. Because they're false sources. You know how there's like the main volcano, and then there's the littler volcanoes around the outside? Which one is more powerful, the main volcano or the little volcanoes that are around the outside? Like the little ones. No. Not the little ones. Not the little ones. The big one. The main one. When it comes to love, who's the main one? Aslan?
Mother?
In an extended way, yes, but immediately who's the main one?
Well, I don't know. It depends on what you mean.
Exactly. It depends on what we mean.
Yeah.
So, ultimately, yes, of course, it's the Divine Mother, the Divine Father, but immediately it's you. It's your own self. Your love. And so for as much as you reach outside of yourself, looking for love, to come to you, to discover love somewhere, to have that relationship where someone is loving you, that's all wonderful. But It's not the root. The root is you. You are the love. And so for all of our searching for this very wonderful, mythical, mystical energy of love, we're never going to find it completely because we too often look for it in the wrong place. We look for it outside of ourselves. So we have to turn ourselves around a little bit and start to investigate. First of all, understanding why we look outside of ourselves for love. And then second, doing the work of looking within to discover what love really is. And once we undertake those steps, once we begin to look within ourselves, looking at the obstacles that we have put in place against love, looking at the doubts that we have about love, looking at the beliefs that we carry about love, looking at the fantasies that we have about love, looking at the realities of what we know about love. Once we do the work of starting to investigate the internal landscape and its relationship with love, then something really amazing starts to happen. We start to receive insights into the true nature of love. And the more that we awaken to those insights, the more we don't push them away or try to avoid them, because sometimes they can be a little uncomfortable, but the more we accept them, the more we actually begin to reflect them. We become what we could call independent. What does that mean? That's kind of a scary word to some people. Actually, to most people, it's both an appealing word and a scary word. I am an independent woman. I am an independent man. I am an independent person. I am an independent youth. I'm independent. I don't depend upon anybody for anything. That's the ego talking. I am an independent human being who is unafraid to love because my love is not dependent upon your ability to love me. That's more of the heart speaking. Do you see the difference? Yeah. So independence is both a very appealing thing to the ego, and it's a scary thing to the ego. Because when you come into a true sense of independence, ego is not needed. The ego is needed in relationship to other people, in relationship to circumstances. The ego tells us, you like this, no, you don't like that. It tells us how to react, what to grasp for, what to grab at. But when we stand in an independent way within the power of our own love, we don't need the ego to be telling us what to do, because we will automatically know. We'll automatically understand through the power of love who to be, how to respond to things. We won't rely on those externalities for love or for happiness, because we'll begin to understand more and more that those things come from in here, not from out there. Very important. So when we step onto this path of yoga, whether it's through the asana or the meditation or the chanting or the community, so many things happen. Like, first of all, people are really kind of creeped out a little bit. You know how many people say, those people up on the hill, they're a cult? I'm like, whatever, Since when is talking about love a cult, It's like, you can all leave, you can all come, you can all stay, you can all go. Like, who's controlling you here, God, so crazy, And like, so what is it that's so cultish? Like, think about that for a moment. I've spent time thinking about that. I'm like, what is so cultish about offering these teachings? What is it? Why is that like kind of the first thing that people who don't know who we are revert to? Not all people, but some. And the only thing that I can say is that they are of the first independent mindset. They are not of the independent heart set. They stand on their own. They don't need anybody for anything. And they most certainly don't need me or anybody here telling them what love is and what love isn't, and how to love and who to love and when to love and if they should love and if there's a divine God and if there's a divine goddess and, and why is that? Because the walls of defensiveness are so high, so strong, so set in place that they're scared. They're scared. And the thing that they're scared of is what? The love of the heart. Absolutely. Someone said to me recently, they said, you know that there are people who, in Oli particularly, I don't know why Oli, but in Oli particularly, who still think that you're a cult. And I'm like, okay, good for them. Yeah, right? So not everybody in Oli feels that way. Like, whatever, it's fine. Let them think what they want to think. Because I understand that what is coming from there is the fear of that which they're not comfortable with. And what they're not comfortable with is their capacity to be the solution, to be the love, to be the truth of their own life. You're sitting here, I'm sitting here, because to some degree, maybe not 100%, but to some degree, we are a little bit more comfortable with that. So we're willing to not only walk around and have it be a fleeting thought in the mind about, I could be a good person and I could learn more about how to take good care of myself and how to love, but you're actually actively doing that. So there's these stages that we go through, where we ignore the power of love, and that includes the self-care that we've been talking about all morning, where we ignore it, we deny it even, and then we begin to fantasize about it. We kind of think we're inviting it in, but it's highly conditional. You're smiling. It's highly conditional, right? And so anybody who doesn't tread lightly on those conditions, out they go, right? So that's a very conditional egoic love, isn't it? And then something happens and the heart becomes compelled, or we have some kind of a situation in life that wakes us up to the potential that we're not looking at, to the potential of love that we have not yet allowed ourselves to see. And it calls us to start to look. And the first place we look is outside of ourselves. Who can I ask? Where can I go? What can I do? What experience can I have? And ultimately, in my opinion, for those who are very fortunate, it will put you onto a meditation cushion or a yoga mat. And in that moment, some moment, might not be the first moment you're on the mat, that might just be confusion. But at some moment, this is what will happen. You are stunned, powerless. You thought you knew what was going on, and now you realize you don't have a clue. You're stopped in your tracks. Everything within your skin is shaking. And then some crazy yoga cult teacher says, enter into that shaking. Get curious. Look around inside with wonder. Unmind your mind. And if you do that long enough, what will happen? All the walls will have fallen down. You dissolve. The one who has always been, who has seen much worse than this, you discover is still there. This is the Radiant Sutra's interpretation by Lauren Roche that I'm reading from. And that's verse 89 with a little bit of a paraphrase. That's what happens when there's you're kind of walking that tightrope, and on the one side is all of the egoic love, that you've been enculturated into, dreamed up for yourself, been reinforced by advertising and parents and loved ones and whatnot. And then there's this other side, and you're trying to balance between the two because you're not sure which way to fall. Do I fall back into the egoic love, or do I surrender myself into the ocean of love? This ocean of love that seems to be really in my face right now, that's making me completely uncomfortable and want to run. Oftentimes this has happened throughout the years where a new student to yoga will come into class, Satsang or something, one of the techniques that we use. And they'll come up to after and they'll say, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I'm looking for. This is like, you're giving me all these answers of questions that I've been asking myself. I just can't believe how amazing this is. And after only one class, this is like so crazy. I just feel so larger than life. You are going to be so sick and tired of seeing my face. I'm going to be here all the time. And they go on and on, talking just like that, like so fast, And I just, I'm so glad that this was purposeful for you. And then they say, I'm going to see you so soon. You're just going to be so sick of me. I'll talk to you next class. And I don't see them again. And I knew that. Because they're on the tightrope. And in that moment, they know very well that they can dive into that ocean of bliss. And their heart is so ready. But in that moment, they're also underestimating something. They're underestimating the acquired power of the ego. And the moment that they walk out the door, and they no longer have the reinforcement of the words, of the scriptures, of the teachings, of the practice ringing in their ear, the ego says, time to reclaim what's mine. Somebody aggravate this person. Somebody make them question the usefulness of love, please. And so the ego drives that. And then they get scared. They end up having fear. What will I do with this newfound love? Who will I be? How will I know myself? This is too much. And I love when 3 years later, the student does finally come. And this is a genuine conversation. Person walked in and said, hi, how are you today? You look familiar. Do I know you? Oh, yeah. I'm embarrassed a little bit to say that I was here once, 3 years ago. And I was just so taken by everything that was shared that day. And it was my intention to come back and to learn more. But, when I left, it was like, I doubted it. I doubted, and I was so taken by this person's honesty because they said, I doubted, I loved every word you said, but then I left and I doubted every word you said. And I was like, either there's something wrong with her, maybe she's crazy. There's something wrong with me, maybe I'm crazy. Maybe I'm not ready yet, I don't know. But I kept trying to push it out of my mind, and I couldn't push it out of my mind. 3 years later, here I am. I hope it's okay I'm here. And I said, of course it's okay you're here. You have no idea how often this happens to people. And they were like, really? And I said, oh yeah, they thought they were the only one, I said, no. I said, that's most people. Because we do walk this tightrope. Egoic love on that side, ego love, ocean of love on this side, and we're constantly falling into the egoic, And so therefore, the ocean of love side is the unknown. It's the unknown. But the promise is that it has everything you're looking for. Everything that you're looking for is there. You will not find what you're looking for on the egoic side of love. You will not find it there. You will think for moments that you have, but you won't in the long run. It will, every moment of pleasure, every moment of satisfaction will dissolve back into dissatisfaction when love is based in the ego. But when love comes from that ocean of love that is within you, you will find everything you need there, without exception. Everything you could ever possibly want. And why is that? Because the independence of being able to love freely and more unconditionally does not create vulnerability to disappointment, vulnerability to being exploited or misused in your love. Standing independently in the true power of love means that you understand your love is not dependent upon anything out there. My love for you is not dependent upon you. It's not dependent upon you being here. It's not dependent upon you leaving. It's not dependent upon you liking me. It's not dependent upon you being happy with me. It's not dependent upon anything like that. And sometimes people don't understand. That's a little scary for them. You know, it's a little scary. And they're like, why is she so nice? I'm like, I'm not nice. Have you met me? I might be kind, but I'm also very straightforward. Just ask a few people. But in a kind way, I would like to think, you know. I don't waste my time being, or at least I would like to believe, that most of the time I do not waste my time being nice. Instead of nice, I work with kindness. I acknowledge if I've been triggered, if I'm angry, if I'm upset, if I'm frustrated, if I'm whatever. I acknowledge that, and then I say I have a choice here. I can either come forward from that place, which I know can be a hurtful place. I know my words can be venomous when I come from that place. My actions. Or I can choose kindness. I can choose to recognize that all parties in the conversation or circumstance are suffering to some degree. All parties are seeking the same thing. They're seeking love. They're seeking acceptance. They're seeking understanding, compassion. So I can come from that place of understanding as kindness. What's the difference between nice and kind? Does anybody know? When you're nice, what is it that you're looking for? When you're nice. Approval.
Yeah, like you're appeasing the situation, you're trying to get through it.
Absolutely. You're looking for approval. You don't want to be confrontational, so you're actually anti-confrontational. And even niceness can have this like negative thing to it, where it's like underhanded a little bit. You know, it's what there's something called that's got a word for it. I'm not thinking of right now. What is it? When we talk in that kind of undertone, we're being really nice, but we actually are being quite sarcastic in our niceness, right? So nice has all these other things to it. What is kind? Genuine. Gentle. Supportive. Honest. Not opinionated, but honest. I mean, let's face it, we're all opinionated. I'm certainly opinionated. But we try not to let the opinion be the lead. Instead, support leads. Being of a servant's heart leads. Being or trying at least, having it be the intention to stay focused on the truth. The witness leads rather than the ego. So I revert back now. So this power of love, this genuine love, this sincere love that we all have the potential to know and to be is hindered in our day-to-day life because we've been taught to choose the other. And it's always reinforced. Every advertisement you see, what people tell you, women when you're told to smile, you should smile more. You've got such a pretty smile, or when men, when you're expected to be the strong, powerful partner who is a provider, a strong, powerful, macho guy who's a provider, but who's also soft, tender, and loving. Those are opposite things, don't you think? At least in society they are, right? So we all come down to that, where it's constantly being reinforced from the outside, and then we make choices that reinforce it from the inside. So we have to really discover the courage and the bravery of our own heart in order to lean more toward the ocean of love, the more and more unconditional love. We have to find the courage within ourselves. We have to be willing to see and to say that this egoic love is limited. It's limited. At best, it's limited. The truth of it is it's temporary in nature. It's highly volatile. It's always changing. And it's rarely satisfying. So what do we do? I'll go back to Lauren Roche's beautiful words. Such beautiful, powerful words. I'm going to read you now a couple of these scriptures, these verses in the scripture. This body is made of earth and gold, sky and stars, rivers and oceans, masquerading as muscle and bone. Every substance is here, diamonds and silver, magical elixirs, ambrosia that gives visions, herbs that nourish and heal, the foundation of the planet, immortal magnetic iron circulating in the blood. Every element in you loves all the others. Earth loves rain, sky loves sun loves space, it shines through. Space loves everyone equally. In meditation, luxuriate in knowing this deep and simple truth. Every cell is an organ of sense infused with majesty, and that is love. Every cell of your being is full of love. So if you stop seeing yourself as separated, I depend upon everything else out there, and instead you start to explore the internal world of the self and start to recognize that there's another kind of unity, one which there's a unity wherein you are not dependent upon the outside world as a thing separate from you. The only thing that you are dependent upon in acknowledging and recognizing and experiencing the fullness of love, the only thing you are dependent upon is your decision to do so. That's the only thing you're dependent upon. The only thing that you're dependent upon in seeing every single person in this room as being equally lovable, equally cherishable, equally radiant, equally good, is your decision to do so. And that decision comes easier to us when we have a meditation practice, when we have a postural practice, a spiritual sadhana of some sort, when we study the scriptures, when we're constantly receiving reinforcement in that regard versus the reinforcement that we receive for the egoic types of love that allow me to choose one of you over another, that allow me to see value in one and no value in someone else. Is this all making sense? Yeah? Matthew, you look like you're in deep thought.
It's Ryan.
Ryan, I'm so sorry, Ryan. I do that, don't I? I know your last name is, but I always do that. I don't know why. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm in deep thought.
Yeah. Do you have a question?
No, I'm just thinking about the love volcano.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So this first verse is just sharing with us that in our exploration of this more universal love, this more powerful type of love that comes from within us, we need to contemplate on the unity of all things everywhere. And the way to contemplate on that unity is to sit down and meditate on it, to read about it, study about it in the scriptures, to practice to it, to explore it, to, again, have the courage from within the self that if you're having, let's just say, an argument with somebody, and your tendency is to point the fingers of blame that it's all their fault, is to stop and recognize what you're doing. My ego is reacting to this situation. I'm pointing my fingers at this person. I'm putting the blame on them. But where is it within me that there is an obstacle to loving this person? Where is it in me that there is an obstacle in this moment of my anger and their anger? What is going on that there is this wall that's saying, I prefer to be angry at you rather than love you? Some might say, well, sometimes that type of anger is love, isn't it? Isn't it? You get mad at somebody, you just want to shake them because you love them so much. Is the anger an expression of love? Or is the anger an expression of the inner fear that your love has been wasted on someone who is making mistakes? And you will no longer be able to love them if they don't straighten their act out. Or, if they don't choose you. You see what I'm saying? So to love them, certainly you may have all these feelings within you, and you acknowledge them. You're not going to stuff them or deny them or anything like that. But when you choose to speak, rather than speaking from the anger, speak from the place of love. Speak from the place of truth and honesty. I'm experiencing fear right now because in this situation, what I'm perceiving is this, that I might lose the opportunity to love you. I might not be able to maintain this relationship. I'm afraid it doesn't matter as much to you as it matters to me. I don't know if there's any reality there. How can you know what another person is thinking, feeling, saying, thinking, feeling, or intending? You don't, and you can't. All you can do is take their word for it. Even looking at someone's actions can be completely misleading. So in this instance, we want to stop just for a moment and breathe and make sure that we're acknowledging what's going on within ourselves. Are we teetering toward the egoic love, or are we teetering toward the ocean of love? Where is this reaction coming from? And can we adjust ourselves appropriately so that, yes, we're acknowledging the multitude of emotions that are coming forward, but we're choosing our words so that they reflect a greater truth. The truth of the love that you carry within yourself. The truth of the power of your love, which stands second to nothing. Does that make some sense? Yeah? No? Maybe? Are there any questions or reflections? Yeah? No? Yes.
I feel like I've been walking this tightrope for a long time, and I think that I have this idea that, like, if I'm in partnership with someone, like, that means that I can't spend enough time, like, diving into that ocean. So I'm like, do you think that it's necessary? Like, I guess you wouldn't abandon love from friends or family. They're just separate. So yeah, I'm just wondering your thoughts on that.
Yeah, and so we do think that. We think that if we continue to invest in the love of other relationships, I won't be able to invest what I need to invest in this partnership. But ultimately, that will lead to some form of resentment. Ultimately, it will lead to some form of possessiveness. Ultimately, it will lead to a sense of lacking within one's own self, a sense of betrayal of one's own self. And it'll lead to longing. Because you and I can sit here and have a conversation, and I would imagine you're an amazingly interesting person, and we could talk for some long period of time. But let's just say that we just say there's nobody else here. We're just not going to pay attention to anybody else. Only we're going to talk, right? Eventually, we're not going to have much to say to one another because we'll be talked out. And so what that's going to lead to also is the longing for conversation. So I'm going to start saying, who can give me a good conversation? And that's going to lead the person that I have been focusing on to feel let down. They'll feel abandoned. They'll feel not good enough. So what I'm saying, or what I'm trying to say, is in these types of relationships, it's important to maintain balance. It's important to remember that, yes, you're in a partnership and you make vows with that partner of whatever form it is that you make, but you don't stop loving everyone else also. And that love doesn't have to be competitive. Because the more that you stand independent in your love, the love on the ocean of love side, the more you stand independently in that love, the more love you radiate to both your partner and then to your children and then to your friends and family and then to extended people. And you don't have to worry, because if it's insulting anybody, at that point, that's not your issue. That's the boundary that they have built up against love. That's because they've been enculturated, educated into thinking, well, if you're not willing to drop everybody and everything for me, then you don't really love me. And then, the response to that is very kindly, actually, I love you so much that I'm willing to not bind you in that kind of a way, that I can stand independent in the power of my own love, whether you stay or go. I will love you anyway. Do you see what I'm saying? But it's hard, isn't it? It's so freaking hard. I know. Because we don't want to say whether you stay or go, because what if they go? Well, they say in the world today, in the United States, I don't know what the world numbers are, but in the United States, do you know that relationships are they don't have good chances. Let's just put it that way. Relationships don't have good chances. More than 55 to 58% of marriages end in divorce. Yeah. So right there, half of the chips are stacked against the relationship, But why is that? It's because of exactly what we're talking about right now. It's because we enter into marriages from the love of the ego and not from the ocean of love. We have children, and we do absolutely love those children, but a lot of that love comes from the ego and not from the ocean of love. If it came from the ocean of love, then we would be able to better support our children as they fall down and as they stand back up, as they do exactly what we want them to do, and as they are defiant against our words. We would be better empowered to accept our children exactly as they are and offer useful guidance, powerful love, to be there in the midst of whatever else is going on. But it is this complicated little thing, because, in a partnership situation, you're talking about two people. Well, if I start living my life from the ocean of love versus the ego of love, shouldn't they comply? And the answer to that is no. I just giggled, right? Yeah. The answer to that is no. They don't have to comply. They don't have to share your views. And that's why it's so important to stand independently in the power of your own love. Because you don't know what the hell's going to go on with theirs. You have no idea. You just don't know. All you know is what is inside of you. And the more that you allow yourself to recognize that, the more clearly you'll see it. And sometimes it helps also to stop and to think, engaging in these relationships, whatever kind of relationship it is, where we're so attached to one another on the egoic side of things, maybe if you let go a little bit, not right away, initially it'll be a shock to the system, and there'll be a retaliation, there'll be something, a response or a reaction. More of a reaction, not a response. But eventually, as we learn what it is to not be suffocated in what we call love, maybe the partner learns too. Maybe they start to acquire insights. And don't forget, they have fears they have to overcome also. They have tendencies they have to overcome also. And there has to be a willingness there to overcome it. If there's no willingness there, then there's no willingness there. But maybe if you stand independently enough in your own power of love that you can let go of the clutch, then maybe over time they'll be able to too. Because most oftentimes in relationships, we're just reinforcing the grab. Does that make sense? Yeah. Let me read another passage to you. I just love this text. It's most certainly a poetical spin on the Bhairava Tantra. And the Bhairava Tantra, the title of the book, I want to say it specifically, the way he said it in here, because it's just so beautiful. He said, the name Vijnana Bhairava Tantra is the actual Sanskrit name of the text. And it loosely translates to the terror and the joy of realizing oneness within the soul. The terror and the joy of realizing oneness within the soul. The terror and the joy of the internal love. Exactly what we're saying today, right? Oh my gosh. And it's a conversation between the Shakti, the feminine, and Bhairava, which is an aspect of Shiva. And they're talking about creation and the gift that has been given to humanity to adore, to love, to be. So this next verse is, where did it go? I thought I turned the page down. Oh, I did. There we have it. So the Divine Mother, who here is called the one who is at play everywhere. She says, there is a space in the heart where everything meets. Come here if you want to find me. Mind, senses, soul, eternity, all are here. Are you here? Enter the bowl of vastness that is the heart. Listen to the song that is always resonating. Give yourself to it with total abandon. Quiet ecstasy is here, and a steady regal sense of resting in the perfect space. You, who are the embodiment of the blessing. Once you know the way, the nature of attention will call you to return again and again. Answer that call and be saturated with knowing I belong here. I'm at home here. It gives me goosebumps every time because he just so eloquently and beautifully put into words the power of so many of these teachings. But what if I don't want to go there? I'm afraid. What if I don't want to step into the ocean of love because, I don't know, are there sharks in that water? There's no sharks in that water. There's no sharks. So there's nothing in the ocean of love that's going to hurt you. There's nothing in the ocean of love that's going to spite you, that's going to waste you, that's going to abuse you, exploit you, lie to you, hurt you. There's nothing in the ocean of love that will do that. There is everything in the ego of love. All the sharks are there. And they're circling. They're all there. So it's kind of silly and tragic in the same moment, don't you think? That you will not jump into the ocean of love because you're afraid of the unknown, yet you'll dive right into the ring of sharks. And give it your all. Give it your all. Because maybe you could change it. But right now, there are 9 billion people on this planet, almost. And we have been on this planet in some form or another. All the way back from the hominids, right? Early hominids. For millions upon millions of years. And to this day, no one has changed it. So, when you see someone who is eloquent in love, when you see someone and they appear to be radiant with love, able to be kind to people equally across the board, when you encounter those individuals, it's not because they have changed the love of the ego, it's because they have abandoned it. And they've dove in to the ocean. And these people are few and far between. We can call them saints. The Mother Amma, Dalai Lama, Thich Nhat Hanh, Mother Teresa perhaps, these types of people. Common people walking around with us too. You know, there are people out there who are like that. These other people have a lot of notoriety. You know, for whatever reason, they need to be in the spotlight because they're a public example. There are people who walk around with no notoriety, and they're the same way. They're what we could call modern day saints because they have abandoned the egoic love. And they chose to dive into the ocean instead. Are you ready for your swimming lesson? Isn't it powerful, though? It's powerful to know that you have such a choice. You have that choice. And you have the freedom. This is, you know, somebody asked me recently, they said, well, you know, if God, I'm paraphrasing greatly, but basically, if God loved us so much, then wouldn't we just be in the ocean of love? Like, you know, why would God even put the egoic love there? And I say, no. Well, the egoic love is part of our human-made experience. What God gave us, what Goddess gave us, is free will. They gave us free will to choose to create our own hell or to share the heaven. You know, they gave us the free will. And the free will is something that the divine will not infringe upon. The mother, the father, the divinity will not infringe upon our free will. They just wait for us. They just wait for us to remember, to cultivate within ourselves enough courage to say, I abandon the egoic love and I'm ready for the deep dive. It's pretty beautiful. Let me share with you one more, maybe two, maybe the whole book. I have my favorites marked. Gaze out at space, aware of multicolored luminosity permeating everywhere. The blue sky, filled with rays from the sun. The night sky, dark, yet crisscrossed by the light of a billion stars. How can this be? All space is the same, inside you and far away. Lose yourself in the spaciousness. Come home to your true self. So this is potentially my favorite verse in the whole text. 2 verses, 69 and 70. Meditate on the self as being as vast as the sky, a body of energy extending forever in all directions, above, below, and all around. Now this is your love we're talking about. This is the radiance, the essence of your being. Meditate on that as being as vast as the sky. It is everywhere. In the embrace of infinite space, awaken to your true form, divine creative energy revealing herself as you. The sting of a wasp, the rip of a nail, a razor's slice, the needle's plunge, a piercing word, a stab of betrayal, a boundary crossed, a trust broken. In this lacerating moment, pain is all you know. Life is tattooing scripture into your flesh, scribing incandescence in your nerves. Right here, in this single searing point of intolerable concentration, the wound becomes the portal. Brokenness surrenders to the crystalline brilliance of being. People talk about mind and ego. Let's just drop this whole conversation and consider instead, there is no mind. There is no ego. There is only the vivid reality of this surprising moment at play, beckoning you. The universe is here to reveal unlimited splendor, infinite diversity of expression. No one can withstand her allure. Adore the colors and shapes of her enchantment, and know the one who permeates it all is a great lover, deeply relating above and below, mortal and immortal, transient and eternal. Perceive the terrifying beauty, be free to surrender and to be thrilled, to tolerate intolerable ravishment. Yeah, I read a couple extra. Because you have to. Lauren Roche has received some criticism saying that his interpretations are not scholarly. Of course they're not scholarly. They're poetical. Poetic is not scholarly. Scholarly is not poetic. It was not his intention to sit there and dot every I and cross every T and explain to you the essence of all of the scholarly stuff. It was his intention to place this scripture into a context that your heart could connect with. Because we use the mind so much to try to understand so much. The mind is extremely connected to the outside world. The mind is what gives way to the love of the ego. We're not so connected with our hearts. We try to be, but we're not so much. So I commend him for being so courageous and brave as to write such a beautiful text, because it takes this scripture, which can be difficult to understand, and he puts it in a way that actually softens all those rough edges and allows you some space to connect with the heart rather than with the mind. He's provided a little bit of a doorway to the ocean of love. And now you have free will. You keep walking the tightrope. Teeter to one side, fall all the way off. Or teeter to the other side, dive in. Or just keep walking the rope of indecision and asking yourself, when is it going to change? When you decide, that's when it will change. Any questions? Any reflections? Was this purposeful? Yes.
It's almost as if you need a life preserver to jump in for that swimming lesson.
Yes.
Because it's,
Yes.
a lot of pressure.
It is a lot of pressure.
There's sharks around and stuff too.
Well, there's no sharks in the
On
ocean.
that side, yeah.
Yeah. Yes. But for the other side, we have all already dove in there. That's where we live day in and day out. We just look at the sharks and say, if I'm good enough, if I'm worthy enough, if I'm something enough, then the shark will let me pet him or her. The shark will be my friend. The shark isn't there to be your friend. The shark is there to be a shark. It's like the frog and the scorpion, right? And so there's a scorpion hanging out on a rock, and this big storm comes, and now there's a flood, and he's a scorpion, so he doesn't know how to swim. But there's this frog swimming across the water, and the scorpion goes, "Hey, dude, slow down for a second. Come over here." And the frog's like, And the frog says, No, really. Like, I'm stuck on here, and if I stay here much longer, I'm going to die because the water's still rising. So won't you please give me a ride? I promise I won't sting you. Yeah, you ever heard that before? I promise I won't sting you. How could I sting you? You're being so nice to me as to giving me a ride over to the shore where I'll be safe. And the frog's looking at him, and out of the goodness of the frog's heart, he's like, well, okay. Scorpion gets on his back, and halfway across, he stings him. Why? Because that's what a scorpion does. He stings. That's what an ego does. It stings. Yes?
I'm just thinking, aren't there some, and I'm not going to use great vocabulary with this, but aren't there just some things, whether it be people or whatever, that we can choose that are just less sharkier?
Sure, of course.
So
Absolutely.
Isn't it about just the free will with that maybe you can be diving a little bit over on the other side where you're supposed to be?
Yeah.
Right?
There's all these levels, aren't there?
Yeah, that's why I'm just
Yeah.
okay, so I just don't, it's not all or nothing, I think, is what
It's
I'm
not all or
saying.
nothing.
But I think it's the free will and the choices that you can make to be less sharkier.
Correct.
Introduce yourself to that.
Right.
Not to.
And to not be that yourself. So don't
Yes.
jump into the ring of sharks, and don't be a shark.
Right, I guess I'm thinking of other
Yeah.
people, or I should be thinking, and other things, or I should
Where
be
it's-
thinking of me.
Yeah, absolutely, right?
It's both though, right?
It's both.
Yeah.
It's absolutely both. And so in today's world, and we can't talk about what it was like in the 1500s or the 1200s because we weren't here then. So we don't know if people had these same kind of emotional dilemmas. We can kind of assume they did because humanity has been humanity for forever. But they probably had a different wording that they put to it, or a different way of understanding it. So for us, we say in today's world, the primary condition in today's world is that we're all a bit love crazy. We're all a bit crazy about love. We want love. We want to be loved. We want to be loved. And we want to love. We want to go out there and we want to love. Where is that person, those people who are going to accept me exactly as I am, poor behavior and all? I kid you not, right? Isn't it the truth?
Yes.
Yeah, and then what happens is we dive into that and we put on our worst possible face. Well, first we put on our best possible face. Then we put on our worst possible face. And then we get pissed off because they don't want to see our worst possible face because they want to see our best possible face. So we're not being honest with ourselves and we're not being honest with them. We're saying to them on one side, on the ego side, we're saying, well, if you're really all that special and loving and wonderful, then you're just going to let me play out this BS right here in front of you. And you're just going to say, I'm good through the whole thing, And then you turn around to them and you say something like, you do know you're causing your own pain. Well, that's not a nice thing to say. I thought you were all yoga. And it's like, well, let's just say that straightforward talk is not anti-yoga. And straightforward talk is not anti-love. And straightforward talk does not make one a bad person or a hypocrite or any of these things. Straightforward talk is just that. It's straightforward talk. Are you aware that what you're doing is hurting yourself? So then we have that tendency where we're both diving into the ring of sharks as kind of the bait, and we are also one of the sharks. And we are baiting other people with this attachment that we have to, I want love, I want love, I want love. But where are you getting your impression of what love is from? Give me some movie titles.
When Harry Met Sally.
When Harry Met Sally. So in other words, isn't that the one where he's at the table and he goes, "You make me want to be a better man"? Isn't that what he says in that movie? Yeah. What's another one? What's it? Which one?
Jerry Maguire.
The Jerry Maguire movie. Totally, right? So this is where we get what's the famous scene in there besides the money scene? Show me the money. But what is it?
Complete me.
You complete me. Oh my gosh, talk about being externalized. You complete me. Yeah. Talk about not being independent.
Or you got ghosted. I'm halfway through that on a flight from Dallas last night.
Yeah, ghost. Oh my gosh.
Ghosted.
Ghosted. But ghost also, right? Ghosted. What's the scene in Ghosted?
It flips right through. It's crazy. It starts out innocent enough. There's a woman, little messed up thing going on a long drive, and a guy, similar thing. They meet up, and
yeah.
It was confrontational and crazy, and then they connected, and then it turned out
they connected.
Neither one of them were who they thought they were.
Yeah. And then there's Ghost. Like, we're all going to learn pottery now, right? Yeah. So there's this is where we are learning love. We're getting these impressions that come in, and it's like, well, I should be able to be that really, imbalanced individual and have you save me, have you accept me, have the power of your love be so strong that it changes me, but I don't really want to change, because if I do, then you got no reason to save me. So that's our impression of love a lot of the time, on some level. What the scriptures teach us is that type of love is so depleting. It's not really love, first of all. But what we call love in that regard is so very depleting that it will forever tear us down and harm us. It will leave us feeling unworthy, unloved, unlikable. It will just bring more and more chaos to us and leave us in a state of fear and dread. If you go to the scriptures for the reinforcement, for the constant learning, for the constant teaching, if you turn to these beautiful poets like Lauren Roche and Rumi, and you read what they have to say, and you suspend your disbelief, suspend your doubts, suspend that egoic statement in the mind as best you can when it says, that's just a really pretty way of saying it, rose-colored glasses kind of thing. And instead you say to yourself, well, that's my fear. My fear is that this is not real. But we exist in a world of opposites. Day and night. Yeah. Everything has an opposite. So if the ego love exists, then its opposite also does. And its opposite is the ocean of love. Your capacity to stand strong, courageous, and independent within your own power of love as evidence of self-care, self-love, and love for all other beings, independent of their willingness to love you back. If your strong dependence upon others exists, then your independence does too. It's just the choice that you're making and the fear that's driving that choice. I'll stop there because we've gone over. But it's a great conversation, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it really is. So I just want to say I thank Lauren Roche for his his beautiful text. Just such a beautiful, it's called the Radiance Sutras. And again, it's a non-scholarly poetical take on the Bhairava Tantra, Vijnana Bhairava Tantra. And it's most definitely worth the read. Opens up the mind to a lot of possibilities. So let's sit up tall and we'll close the eyes. Draw the hands together in front of the heart. And let's lift our voices in one Om. Om.